who is here to talk on building an effective security strategy. So, Ruan is an ISC squared chapter member. He's also a CISSP, currently working with as a senior security specialist, security architecture with London Stock Exchange Group. So he carries with him a lot of experience. So he's going to tell us what we should consider when we put up a business strategy and how it should be aligned uh, or how the security strategy should be aligned with the business strategy so that we can reap the benefits. So without further ado, Ruan, over to you. The floor is all yours.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir. Then actually, thank you so much for your given opportunity to me to represent this presentation. Then I hope everything is fine. We can start now. Oh, something wrong, sir. The screen sharing is disabled for me. Yeah, actually, today I'm not going to talk about the how the business the how to prepare the security strategy, and I'm not going to talk about the how to assess the risks and how to define the security assessment and what is the scope definition and nothing. And today I will talk about how to set the tone, and actually that's what I'm going to talk on this session, because that is the most important part, because most of the time we can see in the Sri Lankan organization, whether it's a foreign organization, they prepare the very good security strategy, but end up being with the lost, and it is not effective ultimately, and the users are suffering. And actually we are talking about today and how to prepare the security strategy to improve the business and to make the value for the business. And that's what actually we are going to talk on today. And I think that will be interesting, because this is not the technical, and this is totally we are going to set the tone.
Sure. So, Ruan, you should be able to present now.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Then actually, today we will have a very quick session, because otherwise it will be a long session. This is a very deep discussion, and but I'm going to conclude it with the very short period of time regarding how the business strategy and the security strategy align, and what should we do before prepare the security strategy. Then we should set the background, and we should prepare the background to make an effective cybersecurity strategy. And that's what we are going to talk on today. In today, actually, I'm mainly focusing on these. This is the content for today. We are going to discuss about why security strategy is important, and understand the business, avoid the technology and speak the business, and how to talk to the business people. And security is the cost and the major thing we need to understand. Top management support, that is essential, and the desired outcomes, understand the security gaps, and monitor, make changes continuously. And those are the major key points we are going to discuss on today. The first one, why security strategy is important and what is the security strategy. And actually, simply, security strategy is the set of steps to achieve the organizational security, and that can have a multiple components. It could be a control objectives, it could be a policies, standard procedures, compliance status, and that is a huge and vast area. It is not the simple as this explanation. But why security strategy is important for the organization? The security strategy is thus important, which details out series steps necessary for organization to identify, remediate, manage risks while staying compliant. I think this is complete. Why the security strategy is important for the business? Identify, remediate, manage risks while staying compliant, because we know the business is not the security. Security is not the business, and we should understand what is the business and how do we protect the our organization. It could be a different organization, and we should have a clear understanding about the business and the security, because business always has risks. Business has risks. We need to identify, remediate, and the manage those business risks. And it is not just about the virus or hacking attack. It is a business risk, because that actually the risk makes business in non-compliant, and it is end up with the financial fine. It could be a very huge reputation cost. And because of that reason, we need to understand how to manage and identify the risks early stage. Otherwise, it could be a very that can be done huge damage for the business. And therefore, the identify, remediate, and the manage business risks in the early stage is very, very important. Because currently we are talking about the information security. It's not about the computer security or just a cyber security, because information security is the vast area, and we have to consider each and every pace of the business, and each and every component of the business as well. And it is not about the computer, it is not about the devices or network. And the next important one is the current and the modern world. The business are agile. The modern business are agile. That means they are changing very, very frequently. They are changing very frequently, and and the technology is rapidly growing up. That is the next point. And because of that reason, the security strategy cannot be in the what's called security strategy cannot be stable for a long time. And it should be a dynamic, because when there is a requirement, that should be able to change. And actually, in the current situation, we talk about maximum of 3 years strategy time period, because the 3 years time period in the modern world is huge and very, very long. Because you can understand, because the technology is very, very advanced now, and they are changing very frequently. You can see, when you think about the 10 years back in the 2010, actually we didn't talk about the cloud computing, but now cloud computing is everywhere. And in the 5 years back, we didn't talk about the blockchain, we didn't talk about the AI, but now always we are talking about the AI, because technology is rapidly growing and rapidly changing. And because of that reason, our security strategy cannot be stable for a long time. And we can and the next one, the compliant status, because in around 10 years ago, not the 10 years ago, actually I think 5 years ago, we didn't talk about the privacy. Now we are talking mainly about the privacy. And when we search something on the Google, we think about the privacy. And when you share something personal with your friend, you think the privacy. When you go to the social media, you think the privacy. And therefore, the compliance status also changing frequently. And therefore, our organization strategy must be a dynamic, and it should be able to change, and it should be able to it should have elasticity to respond any type of security threat, because security threat also changing over the time, right? Around 10 years ago, actually we didn't talk about the ransomware. We just talk about the virus, worms, and something like that, the very, very easy things. But now we are talking about the ransomware, we are talking about cyber crimes. So therefore, we should be able to address all kind of security threats under our security strategy, because there is no excuses for the security people to say we haven't identified this previously, because that's the business, because we are serving to the business. That's the important part. Therefore, and the next one, with my experience and a lot of organization in Sri Lanka, even in the foreign organizations, also doing the ad hoc basis. That means they are doing something, but they don't have any intention to achieve something, and they do because the antivirus is required, and what they do, they went for the vendor and they install antivirus solution on the computers. They take the firewall and config on the perimeter of the network. They said they think now we are secure. In the other way, and they set up the just monitoring system like Solar Windows, something like that, and they think now we are secure and everything is fine. But security is not the one-time effort. It is a journey, and we have to continuously change it. We have to continuously monitor it. We have to do the changes based on the requirement, because within the 3 years time period, the different type of vulnerability can attack to your business. And we have to address it. Because of that reason, the ad hoc basis things actually cost a lot more money, because we don't have any intention. Always keep in mind, the even in the small scale organization, whether it is a large scale, whether it is a small scale, doesn't matter. You should have a clear security strategy to achieve the business values, because you are serving to the business, as I said previously. The next one, when compared to the organization which has proper security strategy in place, and they earn 20% than their competitors, as per the Gartner research around 1 year ago they have done, and they earned over 20% than their competitors. That is the most interesting part. And therefore, you should think about the security strategy, whether it is a small scale company, whether it is a large scale company. You should think, because strategy, the preparation of a strategy does not cost anything, and it is just effort, knowledge, and the experience only. And if you have a good team, definitely you can do that. The next important one, when you are going to prepare the business strategy, when you start the security strategy, the first thing, you should understand the business, because most of the IT managers, IT security managers don't understand the business. And because of that reason, IT do what the IT do, what they want. The next one, the business doing something else, because business going in the different way, IT is going the different way. The most important part is the modern IT is not the supportive department. Modern IT department is not the support department. They does not provide the support. Now IT department is a business enabler. IT can make the value to the business. That is the important part. But still, most of the Sri Lankan organization I have seen that they are just providing support to the business, and they are not enabling business, because the reason is IT managers, IT security managers does not understand the business. The first thing, you should understand what the business going to do, and what is the vision of the business, and the mission of the business, and that you should have a clear understanding on the business if you want to implement good security and the IT strategy. And otherwise, you are supporting to the IT department, and you are preparing IT strategy. It does not help to the business. And most of the time we can hear from the IT manager's perspective, and the top management does not provide the money, does not provide the enough funds. And we have to think why it happened. The reason is the IT managers and the security managers, actually they are think about the security. Yes, that's good, but actually they don't think about the business. And if they think about the business, that won't happen. The next one, what are the business priorities and initiatives? We should understand what what is the business priorities, what the business going to do within the next 2 to 3 years, 2 to 3 years. And the next one, we should have a clear understanding about what the business has initiated right now, whether it could be a manufacturing company, it could be a financial organization, it could be an IT organization. Whatever organization, you should have a clear understanding about the business priorities and the business initiatives. Otherwise, you will not be able to understand what is your security strategy, what to secure. And you should provide the, for example, if if you are working for the manufacturing organization and you are going to export some product into the Europe. Now Europe, GDPR is the any business or any people who work with the European countries, and if they collect any privacy data from there, definitely you should be able to compliant with the GDPR law, and GDPR is a law. And what should we do? Definitely our system must be compliant with the GDPR. Then if they plan to go in the next year, in the 2023, definitely our system must be ready for it. And if we have a website, if we collect the data, and we should compliant with the GDPR law. Otherwise it is end up being the huge financial and reputation cost. And therefore we should clearly understand about the priorities and the business initiatives. Next one, the industry and the market trends. There are two type of market trends we should understand. The first one, we should understand the business related market trends. The second one, IT related and the information and the security related market trends. We should have a clear understanding on that, because around 10 years ago we talk about the on-premise data centers or the outsourcing data centers, like we just talk about the ISP data centers, could be any other data centers. And but after a few years later, the cloud computing came to the play, and we are talking about the cloud computing now. Always now we can't neglect the cloud computing. We always talk about the cloud computing, and we have to keep our mind on the cloud computing, because around the lot of application comes as the SaaS application now, and no standalone application, because that's very easy to manage and that reduce the cost as much as possible. But if we are think still on the old data centers, and because all data centers makes huge cost, because we have to have a data centers, we have to have a backup sites, that means the DR site, we have to have the good connectivity and the staff, and that makes huge cost. But when the cloud computing comes into the play, the everything was replaced by the cloud computing. And we should have a clear understanding about the business trend, the industry trend. In otherwise, if we talk about the business related trend, if you are working for the manufacturing organization, and we know there are so many technologies in the world. Now we are talking about the SCADA system, we are talking about the IoT system, blockchain, MES, manufacturing execution system. And if you plan to do something, you have to think about the company may implement this type of solution. And therefore it is essential to keep on your mind the market in a market can change rapidly, and our system should be ready. If you think how to implement the network, and you are going to implement new network for the organization, and your network must be ready for the manufacturing execution system. Maybe your machineries in the manufacturing organizations are using huge manufacturing equipments, and those equipment may need to access the computer network, and you should think about that as well. It is essential. I think that makes a little bit clear. And the conclusion on this, because IT manager, IT security manager should have a clear understanding on what is the business, what is the business priorities and the initiatives and the market trends, vision, mission, etc. That is essential. The next one, actually, this is the biggest mistakes done by the IT and the security managers, technical peoples. The avoid the technology, speak the business. You can be a good manager, and you should have a clear understanding on how to prepare the business, the security strategy and the IT strategy. And but when you go for your top management, you will face some difficulties because they will not allow you to implement this. What's the reason behind that? Most of the time, the world has identified because the technical people talk technical into the business people, and that's the biggest issue, because technical people can understand the technical, but business people can't understand technical. For example, we just suppose you're going to implement now you have a physical data center. Now you want to replace it by the cloud data center. Now you have prepared the strategy, you define everything. Now you go for your CFO or CEO, sometimes managing director, and because it incur a lot of cost. When you go there and you explain why cloud computing is important, the cloud computing is the most scalable solution, that is the highly scalable and flexible. We can access anywhere from the world, and remote access is possible. We talk, but can business people understand those technical words? Definitely no, because CFO is not the expert on IT or cloud computing, and therefore he should be able to understand the business word. Then we should talk in the business language, and we can show how avoid the cost by implementing cloud data center instead of the physical data centers, and how we can replace it. We can say our CFO, because in currently we have two data centers, because one data center is the backup data center. We have to manage two data centers because of the resiliency problem, because one data center can go down at any time, but our business should be continue, and therefore we have to manage two data centers, that is the physical data centers, and that incur a lot of cost. But if we implement the this new technology called cloud computing, the cloud computing is more scalable, and this technology does always address the capex of the business, because we don't need to replace our data the equipment time to time, because the entire data center, and now we are managing our physical data center. Now we are not going to manage the physical data center. Those physical data center is managed by the vendor, and we just need to pay the opex for them, and we are not we have no opex. But in the beginning we should have some small scale capex, because we need to implement, we need to migrate, and that's all. And therefore we have avoid the replacement cost in the future. For it could be for a 10 to 15 years until the next technology comes. We can use this technology, because there is no capex on the operation on the cloud computing, and because of that reason there is a huge cost cost reduction you can see, and that is the very important part. On that way the business people can understand, then he can understand what is the capex, what is the cost, and how do we achieve the cost, and everything he should be able to understand. But in the other way, if you talk about the technical things, definitely he would not understand, because he has no idea about the technology terms and the terminologies, and therefore you should learn the language of business. That is essential when you present something to the non-technical people. The next one, the very important, the focus on value instead of advanced technical solutions. Always think about the value you can create for the business. That is essential. For example, your managing director asks you to provide the internet connectivity for the boardroom, and that boardroom and you have been advised, because the external people will come, and our suppliers, partners customers may come to here, and therefore you should have a clear stable internet connectivity. And what you are going to do, and you go for your ISP1, you think about the security, because external people will access those data, the internet connectivity, and therefore the malicious user can access our internal network, and therefore you decide to purchase internet connectivity from the ISP, new connectivity, and the connectivity should be reliable, and therefore you go for the ISP1. We just suppose it's SLT, and you go for the ISP1, and you purchase the dedicated fiber line, and you go for the another ISP and purchase another fiber line, the dedicated fiber line, and you prepare the very strong internet connectivity, because now you have a dedicated internet connectivity. There is and the two internet connectivities, there is no it is a fault tolerant, and in case of failure on the one internet connectivity, you can use the other one, and you have a two Wi-Fi access point, and it has a good bandwidth. Everything is fine. But when you go for your manager, CFO, he said this is a huge cost. Why? Because you don't understand. And he said, okay, we'll go. We can give only 10,000 rupees per month. Why? Because you don't understand the value, because how much value can create through that board meeting, and how long it use, and how many times per month it will be using. Those things you should understand clearly. Otherwise you add cost to the business. You are not going to add any value to the business, because the comprehensive technical solution does not resolve any business problem. Actually, the board meeting is not the critical place, and it is just in if you can't give internet access from your internal network, it is just a ADSL connection, 4G connection is enough, because it is not the continuously using, and it is not using heavy load. What else? Then you should think about the value instead of the advanced technical solution, because most of the time I have seen in the Sri Lankan organization, they have a very, very advanced technical solution, but they don't know why. Why do they need it? One of the organization, when I went there, and they had the very good technologies, and but when I see their firewall, the firewall usage percent is 1%, and they have another Cisco device, and it was a very huge device that can handle 5,000 users, but they don't know why. And but they use the same purpose of the firewall, and but organization had only around 150 maximum concurrent users maximum. In the peak time, we can see only 150 concurrent users, but the device can handle the 5,000 users. The reason, because they think about the advanced technical solutions, not about the value that create to the business. And always you need to keep on mind, think about the business value, not the technical solution, because technical should be aligned with the value that you are going to create. The next one, learn from the past, plan for the future. When you learn, when you are going to define the security strategy, or when you are going to define the roadmap, you should understand what happened past, and you can take the examples from the world as well as your own experience. Can be a same organization, anywhere you can take that experience, and that should come that should bring into the table. And you should always keep on mind when you are planning those things, how to use the past experience. And always always keep in mind, but you are not going to plan for the past, you are going to plan for the future. The most mistakes, the most common mistakes which is done by the IT managers, because the something has happened 5 years ago, and therefore they planned it for planned it to achieve the same type of attack or same type of failures. that is not effective because it happened past. We learn something from that past, but we should plan it for we should plan for the future. Future can be changed, the technology is changed, the resource may be changed, our environment may be changed already, and therefore we should learn from the past, but we should plan for the future. Always keep in mind these things are very, very important when you are preparing security or IT strategy. The next one, the security is the cost, it is not a goal. One major point you need to understand, you need to make it understand for the top management as well, because security is not a goal, it is a cost that always eating your money, but you can add value to the business. That is the important part. Most of the time, the people who are going to prepare the security for the organization, they think about the common security threats and the vulnerabilities, but actually what the IT management people, security managers, CISO, they should think about the risks associated with the business. It is not only about the technology. In the most of the Sri Lankan organization, I have seen that, because they are think about the technical risks, not associated with the business risks, right? We always think about the what the business risks associated with the technology or the process or the any other policies or anything, documentation, machineries. We think about the what is the business, the risks associated with the business. That is the important part. And if there is no risk to the business, why to implement the controls over it? For example, one of the organization I had experience, and when I went there, they have two data centers in two different locations, and they had a connectivity between. It's a VPN. It was a VPN connection, and when I asked that question, and I understand that it is a MPLS connection. We know that MPLS connection is not feasible for the two data centers, because MPLS we use for the multiple if we need to connect the multiple locations, we use MPLS connection, because MPLS is the huge WAN technology. And when I asked the question, why do you use this MPLS connection, and the explanation I was given by them, because in case of failure on the ISP side, and ISP had multiple site to locate, ISP has multiple option to reach our data center. Actually, they have given solution to the ISP's problem. It is not our problem. It is not the organization problem, because in case of ISP failure, we can if we use two data centers, because because we just suppose, and they have a two connectivities in and out in the MPLS, and we have to pay for the two connectivities, two connections. For example, the organization A to ISP, we have a one connection, we have to pay for the one amount, and we have another connection between the organization B and the ISP, and we have to pay for the additional cost on that as well. That means the two bills, two payments should be done, and that means around when we compare with the P2P connections, it is cost around 4 times than the P2P connections. That is huge amount. When I asked that question, because they said in case of failure on the ISP, we should be able the ISP should ISP able to the switch their data center in the different location, and they can access they can continue our connectivity. So it is not our problem, but in case of the cable failure, that was a fiber cable. In case of the cable failure on the nearby organization, or in the physical damage in the road, main road, nothing happened. It does not work. Therefore, we should have the best option to there is we should have a two VPN connection from the two different organization, two ISPs. In case of failure on the one ISP connection, we can use another one. And but actually they have given solution to the ISP, not for us, because that organization has multiple only two locations. If they don't have a multiple locations, therefore the only option they can use, the best option they can use is the VPN connection, two P2P VPN connection. But MPLS connection is to multiple locations. And if you have a bank and you have a branches in different cities, then you can use the MPLS connection. So in that case, you should be able to understand what is the risks associated with the business. And the next one, you should be able to understand the risk appetite, how much risks you can afford, you can address. And that is the next important one. You should be able to understand the risk appetite, the risks of the risk tolerance, and how much risks you can afford, how much risks you can avoid and the mitigate. Those things you should be able to understand. And the understanding the risks associated with the business and the risk appetite or risk tolerance is essential. The next one, always focus on the residual risks. And actually the later part of this slide, you can define the risk mitigation strategy. This is totally based on the residual risks. Understand and define the risk mitigation strategy. There are multiple different risk mitigation options. The one we can avoid, we can mitigate, we can transfer, we can accept. It is always we need to think about the residual risks. How much is the residual risks? Because we are talking about the monetary terms, not about the just numbers. And therefore you should have a clear understanding about when you implement the security control, how much is the residual risks. If it is negative, you should be able to understand that risks you can accept. And actually the risks always based on the financial value, and you should be able to understand, because it is not only about the financial value. It could be a reputation, and it could be a strategic cost, the strategic risks, and the maybe a credit risks, and different type of risks available in the organization. Because now we are not going to talk about the just IT risks, and we are talking about the enterprise risks now, because all organization, all enterprises are on the those are connected to each other, those are connected to the world. And therefore we are talking about the enterprise risks. And therefore we should understand what is the residual risks when you are going to implement the security solution. And always keep in mind, it is essential to understand what is the residual risks. If you don't understand the residual risks, the control may not be effective. And you should understand what is the residual risks of implementing this control. That is essential. It's a very much important point. Top management support and engagement. Top management support is essential in the organization, because top management, or if you can engage with the top management in the beginning, it is essential, because you should be able to understand the top management will be the final approver. And if they are engaged in the beginning, they will have a clear understanding on what you are going to do, what you are going to achieve, and what you need to do on that, and what you need, what is the IT department requirement. Those things they will be understand in the beginning. Therefore the engagement of top management is essential. Whether it is a IT strategy or whether it's a security strategy, it is clear you should be engaged with the top management. The next one, you should know where you are going now. What is your 3-year plan? And you should understand what is your desired outcomes before you plan your security strategy, you should understand what you need to do, and what is your desired outcomes, and what is your major milestone and your timeline. You should be able to understand those things, because if you don't know where you are going now, you can't achieve anything, because if you can't measure, you can't improve it. Therefore, always keep in mind, you should have a clear milestone and clear desired outcomes, and you are planning it to achieve through the some roadmap. That is essential to understand, because you should have a clear roadmap to achieve one particular target. That target may be a achieve compliance status, maybe a organization overall security strategy, implementing security management system, and you should have a clear timeline as well. Then you can measure it. That is essential when you prepare the security strategy. Otherwise, because my experience is very bad in the most of the organization, because they don't have a clear idea on that. They are doing something, always trying to implement security controls when they see the security risks or vulnerability, and they are always developing, but actually it is never development comes to an end, because they are not working to the target. That is very, very bad. That always add a new cost to the business. But we should go for the clear business target, and that makes that help to the improve your business efficiency, security efficiency, or cost reduction, and everything. When you understand where you are going to go now, you should understand where you are right now, and you should clearly understood uh, what is your current state, and what you have, the assets you have, and the resources you have, and you know where you want to be in the next 3 years of time period. You know what is your current status, and you know what are the gaps. Then you can prepare the roadmap very easy. And therefore, always keep in mind, always define the desired outcome first, understand what you have right now, and identify the gaps and prepare the roadmap based on that. The next and the last important one, effective communication. And when you go to the organization, and any new person who comes to the organization should be able to understand the what is the security strategy, what is the business strategy, what is the mission of the organization, what is the mission and vision of the IT security department. They should be able to clearly understand what is the my role. If new IT manager come to the organization, when new system administrator come to the organization, they should have a clear understanding about what is their role to achieve this target, the security strategy. And therefore, the communication is very, very important. It is essential, and therefore, if you need to success, if you need to prepare the success security strategy, you should prepare the communication strategy first, and you should have a clear understanding about how to communicate, and what to communicate, and when to communicate. That is essential. That always keep in mind, the security strategy should be communicate to the rest of the team, and business strategy should communicate to the rest of the team and the entire business. Each and every person should know what is the business strategy, and what is the business targets, objectives, etc. And same thing for the IT strategy and the security strategy as well. The communication is the key part. Yeah, when you implement the security strategy, always you need to measure the progress and changes. You can use the KPIs, key performance indicators, key risks indicators. You can have a dashboard, and the physical and virtual meetings, you can get the directly feedback from the users. But most of the time, because when you implement the security of the security strategy, the people suffer from it, because actually they have a business requirements to do something, but you have blocked it. And because actually most of the Sri Lankan organization, I have seen that, because the security is, they are just blocking everything, but actually security is achieving the confidentiality, integrity, and the availability, because we need to provide all three items. Otherwise it is not effective. You should be able to ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and the availability as well. In most of the time we see that availability is the less important in the most of the organization, because they don't care it and they implement security solutions, but that is not effective at all. Therefore all three the component must be achieved: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If you don't have availability, that is useless. Right, then actually today's my session will come to an end, because if you have a good security strategy, you will be able to identify the risks early, and you can stay compliant, and you can add value to the business. It is not the cost. Security is the cost, but the security can add value to the business, increase reputation of the business, and the user satisfaction as well. And you can build the risk aware culture. That is the most important thing, because in the modern organization, human is the biggest risk element in the any organization, because you can't do anything on that. Therefore, you if you have a good security strategy, you can build the risk aware culture. And actually this is not the how to prepare the security strategy from the beginning, because that's a different discussion. Actually today I'm discussed about how do you set the tone to prepare the security strategy, and that is the important part. Hello Switch sir, over to you.
Right. Yes, Ruan, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your insights. Right. So I'd like to pick on the last point you mentioned, that we need to build a risk-aware culture. A risk-aware culture is an ongoing process where the organization will have to continuously educate the users, make aware of the risks which are emerging, and also put in controls to mitigate those. So it's a continuous activity. And I would, in your words, I would call it a journey. Then you also mentioned that you need to continuously monitor. You talked about KPIs and various other things. Rohan, if I may request you to, stop sharing the screen, then we can
Okay.
both be on the screen. Awesome. So monitoring is also important, right? You continue to monitor the effectiveness of the controls, right? The performance of your KPIs has to be periodically reviewed, right? That review can happen at various layers, maybe at an operational layer, at a strategic layer, and also engage the auditors to assess whether the controls implemented give you the desired results or make course corrections. So you make strategies, you align it with the business, right? The security controls are aligned to business strategies, and then you bring the auditors and assess the effectiveness of those controls to give assurance to the management that we are doing the right thing and it is giving the desired results. Then you also said, you talked about the cost, right? Cost is a concern for everybody, and especially for Sri Lanka today. It is a subject of concern, a huge concern, right? And most of our security investments are in foreign currencies, be it a dollar, be it euro, any other currencies, right? So there is always that concern with the inflation and the depreciation of the rupee. So the cost has escalated, right? So I'm taking that point and I'm going to ask you a question. You did mention your strategy should be for 3 years. Now we are seeing market dynamics which are so unpredictable. Right? There are so many factors which we are dependent. Like typically an IT person may not even understand how does the oil prices and the foreign currencies or a conflict in another part of the world has an impact on his procurement with respect to the dollars. So is it still good to say that we should have at least a 3-year plan, or should we say that we need to review it every 6 months, or or even lesser, or every quarter you review your strategies and then fine tune? What is your take, Ruan, on this?
Yeah, actually, sir, in the beginning, I mentioned that because now modern business are agile, and because business are changing very, very frequently. But actually, we can think about the maximum of 3-year journey, and we can think about, we just suppose we need to have a compliance status, and we can achieve those compliance status within the 3-year time period. And but it should not be go to the 3 to 5 years. That is a very, very long, because technology may change, and we just suppose it is a GDPR law, and after 3 years GDPR law may change, and therefore that's what actually I mentioned that
So what
this
you're
is
saying is that while you make plans for a certain period, you continuously assess and make course
yes,
corrections in due course.
exactly.
So that your plan is not static, you're aligning your security with the business requirements.
Exactly,
Excellent, excellent.
exactly. In other ways, sir, actually, our budget must be agile, and we should be able to take the 3 months quarter wise. And I think that's the effective way. And around 3 months ago, and one of the Sri Lankan Sri Lankan businessman mentioned that the marketing guy should have a 1 week budget, and they should be able to change it once a week, because market is changing and the strategy is changing, and therefore our budget cannot be static for a 1-year time period. It's too long, and they suggest that our budgeting cycle should be limited to the maximum of 1 month to 1 week.
Mm, mm, mm.
And even in that is similar to the IT as well. And I can think it is at least, as you said, once every 6 months or once every 3 months, we should assess everything.
Right. One last point, right? I mean, I want to touch on the cost, right? You did mention about budgets being agile, right?
Yeah.
And this statement will probably be a shocking in the
Yes.
ears, and it will shock the financial controllers or people who handle finance, because finance is not unlimited. Your budgets are
Yeah.
not unlimited, right? It's a
Yeah.
limited amount of money. Now, there are two aspects I want you to comment on. One, organizations have limited supply of money, and within that, the security team will have to effectively function, right, or implement
Yes.
controls. Now,
Exactly.
the other aspect is you did talk about cost. The question I have is you did advocate that all organizations should consider adopting cloud, and maybe it would work out cheaper. I mean, I'm just trying to get clarity. Does that apply to all organizations? Can a small organization or a mid-sized organization also say, yeah, if I go to cloud, I might get a cost saving? Or does it only apply to larger organization where they adopt cloud and they get the full benefit of those platforms?
Yeah, actually, sir, it is depend on the business and the nature of the business, and the data they are going to handle, and what is the IT operation looks like, and the nature of the IT operation is totally depend. For example, we just suppose even in the modern retail shop also using retail shop supermarket chains, they are using the IT infrastructure and the technology, but actually that may not effective for them, because why? Because they are handling very, very small scale IT operations, and in that case, actually, that will not be effective. And actually, that should assess before you prepare in the cloud migration journey. And it is the cloud, we should have a separate strategy for the cloud migration, and we should assess everything before moving to the cloud, whether it is effective for the on-prem infrastructure, whether it is can we go for the outsourcing mechanism. And there are multiple options are available, as the cloud is one option, and the world is adapting to it, but does not mean each and every organization get benefited from it. It's totally
Right.
depend on the nature of the operation.
Excellent. So, Ruan, we are just coming to the end of this session. We're going to be completely out of time in another 2-3 minutes time.
Yeah.
So, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking time to share your ideas, your views with our members, and people who are there probably will listen in, and I'm sure this will be an eye opener to them. So I look forward to having you on another show in the future, Ruan. So with that,
Yeah.
I want to thank you once again.
Welcome.
For those people who will be listening to our recorded stream, we are on YouTube. Please like and follow us. We are also on Facebook. We are on LinkedIn. You can follow us there as well. We'll be posting all our updates on LinkedIn, Facebook, and on YouTube. We are also on Twitter, so you can follow us on Twitter as well. We are also on Instagram, so you can follow us on Instagram and keep sharing our messages across. I would also like to share good news. The chapter has been recognized as one of the best chapters in the world, and we have won the award for being the best chapter in Asia Pacific region for fulfilling the ISC Squared's vision and objectives. Right, so there are 4 chapters in the 4 regions who have been recognized, and we have been recognized. Sri Lanka chapter has been recognized as the best chapter for 2022 in Asia Pacific region. So that goes to say that we are being relevant to the members and to the industry. So we would like to bring in more programs, more conversation to you, which will be of interest to you. So if you have any specific topics which you would want us to discuss, or host shows around those topics, please mail them to me, president@ISC Squared Colombo chapter. Or if you have any suggestions or any improvements we can make, please share those views with me on email, president@ISC Squared Colombo chapter. So with that note, thank you everyone, and thank you Ruan once again for being here, and see you all on another show. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.